Boom! Welcome back to Rise Reacts. You dig what I'm saying? Look, before we even get into this video, my bad for kicking the camera. Make sure y'all subscribe. Make sure y'all like. Make sure y'all drop a comment. Now that's out the way. So look, man, y'all know I got a thing with these little interrogation videos. You know what I'm saying? I love watching people crack in the interrogation room. Whenever they do know they rights and they do decide to have a lawyer present before they start talking, I'm not gonna lie, that makes for the worst videos, because it's like you know what to do. I love watching people crack that don't know what to do. I know it's kind of messed up. But I found this video online. They talking about how it was a cop that turned into a serial iller. I'm not gonna say the K word because I don't know if I can say it on YouTube or not. But yeah. So with that being said, let's just get straight into it. You did.
There is no exact definition in the dictionary to describe an evil person. But following the details of this case, this woman comes pretty close.
Oh.
My name is Adrian, and welcome back to another video by Coffeehouse Crime. In today's case, we'll be looking at the crimes of serial killer Rosemary Ndlovu, and how this policewoman's selfish desires took the lives of 6 innocent people, with a further 6 planned. By the way, I post solved, unsolved, and strange cases here on a weekly basis, so if that sounds like your kind of thing, please consider subscribing to Coffeehouse Crime. So pull up a seat, grab a coffee.
Hey, this is my first time watching this guy do an interrogation video. I don't even know what to expect, to be honest with you, but he sounded very pleasant. Sound like a great storyteller. Let's get straight into it.
And sit back. This is the case of Rosemary Ndlovu.
Rosemary.
From majestic mountain peaks and vineyards, to rugged bushveld and unspoiled beaches, our case today takes us to the beautiful continent of Africa.
Oh!
And more specifically, to the southernmost tip of South Africa.
South Africa?
The country is largely popular amongst tourists for its rolling savannas, which are doted on amongst safari lovers. And alongside its beautiful coastal scenery and unique cuisine, it is no wonder that people from all over the world visit this corner of geographical paradise. And of course, who could forget its sprawling vineyards that have emerged in the past century, making South African wine a staple in anyone's wine rack. Zeroing in on our location for today, we're travelling into the province of Gauteng, which encompasses South Africa's largest city, Johannesburg. Classed as a megacity, Johannesburg is the economic powerhouse of South Africa. However, although this may be the case, the city has a very polarising divide when it comes to wealth, with a whopping 37% unemployment rate and 29% of—
Hold on, bro. I mean, it's some regular houses on the left-hand side, and what is that on the right-hand side? Do people live there?
When it comes to wealth, with a whopping 37% unemployment rate and 29% of the population living in informal housing.
Oh.
Putting it short, life in the big city is far from beneficial for everyone.
Oh.
You could argue that money is what keeps the planet spinning. It buys us essentials, necessities, and also luxuries. A notion that today's subject seems to pay a lot of attention to.
What's popping off?
In the northeastern flank of Johannesburg, we find the home and workplace of Rosemary Ndlovu. Rosemary was born in 1975 to her mother Maria Mshwana and a father who remains unnamed. Rosemary was Johannesburg born and bred. She grew up with a relatively normal childhood and also graduated at a high school level. In her adulthood, she was described as an average woman, and those around her would say that she could be quite brash and rather masculine in nature. She trained and gained work as a police officer, where she excelled due to her hardy nature. Although Rosemary dedicated most of her life to her work, this would not stop her from getting married. It was in the year 2011 that she met a new boyfriend, Morris Mabasa. Morris worked for the US Embassy, and he was known to be a kind and generous man, both physically and financially looking after his 13 siblings and aging mother.
Damn!
He had—
What? He took care of 13 people? What?
Had friends all over Johannesburg, and his work would take him to many provinces. From what is known, Rosemary and Marie seemed to have a relatively happy relationship. although they were known to have the odd fight here and there.
Like everybody.
Financial struggles, long days of work, the usual things that you'd expect in mild arguments. Rosemary and Maurice were both well-paid workers and earned high in their respective fields of industry. But there was a big difference in how the two would spend their money. Although Maurice would share his wealth with his other members of family, who were often in poorer situations, Rosemary was quite the opposite. She would often spend all the money she had on herself and her gambling addiction.
Hey, from America to Africa, ain't no difference.
Rather than helping out her poorer siblings and mother. And many of them quite literally lived in poverty. Due to Rosemary's nature of work, and also her family members' lifestyle and living conditions, she would often tell them that maybe they should consider getting life insurance, as the mortality rate for those living in poverty in Johannesburg is sadly very high. She often offered to file and pay for those insurance policies as she had a well-paying job within the family. And so the insurance was filed for several family members, including her cousin, witness Madala Homu. Rosemary had previously expressed to Homu's mother that she was worried for him, mostly due to the way that he conducted himself and the people that he involved himself with.
Hold on, bro. Did she put life insurance on her family and end up murdering them? Come on.
She therefore encouraged Homu's mother to add him to a burial society. Homu's mother accepted, and the policy was filed with her consent. However, during this procedure, Rosemary listed herself as Homu's wife. And being his cousin, there's a few things wrong with that. A few months would pass, when suddenly in March of 2012, Homu disappeared without a trace. With the family living in poverty, and therefore having no cameras, mobile phones or social media profiles, barely any pictures of Homu or his family are available. But Homu was a family man. He loved his mother, and he was close to the rest of them too. So after vanishing with no correspondence to anyone, it was a very troubling sign for the family. Seemingly distraught by his disappearance, Rosemary spearheaded a search for her missing cousin, assuring her family that she would do her very best to try and find him. And sadly, that search didn't last too long either. Very shortly after investigations began, Homu's body was discovered just a few miles away in Olifantsfontein, a town just north of Tembisa. Autopsies discovered that the cause of his death was blunt force trauma to his head.
Damn.
And, rather obviously, his death was ruled as homicide. But unfortunately, these are the lower class lands of South Africa. He was just one of many murders in this area.
Damn.
And as a result, further investigations were sadly deemed not worth the funds or time.
Now that is bold. I'm not gonna lie. That is bold, boy. Rest in peace to that man.
Witness Madala Homu was laid to rest in March of 2012, and although Rosemary had taken out insurance for her cousin, she contributed almost nothing to the funeral costs for him.
Oh,
in fact, despite being paid 100,000 rand or $6,500 through his death, she contributed a measly 200 rand, the equivalent of $13. Homu's family were devastated, but with barely any money, they had no time to mourn. They moved on with devastated rand.
We gotta take that back. Hold on. What's the figures?
And although Rosemary had taken out insurance for her cousin, she contributed almost nothing to the funeral costs for him. In fact, despite being paid 100,000 rand or $6,500 through his death...
Hold on, so she only got 6 bands for her cousin's death?
She contributed a measly 200 rand, the equivalent of $13.
Boy, what? Hold up. So her cousin died. I don't know. Sounds like maybe by her. Her cousin died. She only gets $6,000. And she only gave the family $13. She's a wild one.
Homu's family were devastated, but with barely any money, they had no time to mourn. They moved on with their working lives pretty swiftly after his death.
Damn.
After all, this was quite common in the area.
$6,000.
We're moving 1 year on, and it's now June of 2013. Rosemary's sister, Audrey, who lived nearby, was in the midst of her everyday routine. That was when Rosemary called her to see if she would like to have some dinner with her later that night. Audrey was surprised by this invitation. It wasn't a usual offer from her, but she gladly accepted.
She knew it was all because she was cheap as hell. She
invited Rosemary over to her rented room in Tembisa.
By the way, if y'all hear like a little grunt sound, my dog snore when she sleeps. So, yeah, that y'all heard that.
And the two proceeded to share an evening meal together. Audrey was happy to see her sister. It had been a while, and the two rarely shared an evening in each other's company. Supposedly, nothing worth mentioning happened during this dinner.
Okay.
And afterwards, Rosemary left Audrey's house and went back home. The very next day, to her parents' surprise, Rosemary couldn't get hold of Audrey on the phone. So with concern, she raised the alarm and requested that the police begin a search for her second missing family member.
Come on now.
Arriving back at her sister's place the very next day, neighbours overheard screams and crying as they witnessed Rosemary grieving for the loss of her sister. Audrey had sadly been poisoned and then strangled in her very own home.
Oh my God. Poisoned and strangled? Poisoned and strangled? That don't even make sense.
Left dead on.
Why would you strangle somebody that you done already poisoned? Rosemary, wow.
Her floor to be discovered the very next day. Prior to her own death, Audrey had taken out life and funeral insurance policies to her own name, which was kind of surprising as she could barely afford the room that she rented. The insurance and funeral payouts totaled 700,000 rand, the equivalent to $45,000. And the beneficiary to...
So I don't know if it was her husband or her cousin. I don't know. He kind of confused me with that. She only got 6 bands for him, but then she got 45 for the sister? What? Not saying the 45 is worth. I mean, that's a $39,000 difference. If she was gonna do it for 6, you knew she was gonna get down for the 45er. Oh man.
To this was Rosemary. And so another member of the family had been found dead, both from low-income households and both with life insurance, both addressed to Rosemary as the beneficiary.
Come on, Rose.
And just like before, this murder was barely investigated or chased up. A couple months later in 2014, and Rosemary moved to police stations, opting to become a constable at the brand new Tembisa South station in East Rand. She would settle into her new role very quickly, her new co-workers all claiming that she was very pleasant and generous.
Yeah, because she had 50 bands, 50 rackets. I bet.
She would often buy them more lunch, and gave loans to any of them who were in need of money. But that wasn't all the time. Some days, Rosemary would walk into the office with a very dark cloud around her, often irate and angry, complaining that she was broke, and making sure that all of her colleagues knew that. They were also aware that she had been frequenting Empress Palace in Kempton Park, a large casino in Johannesburg. It seemed as if Rosemary was frequently coming into money, only to lose it again to gambling and frivolous spending.
No!
And although Rosemary had recently started a new job, it was in the year of 2014 that she fell pregnant to her first and only child.
How old was
Her name was Makanani. Maurice and Rosemary loved their daughter more than anything in this world.
Hold on, Maurice? Hold on, Maurice? You didn't think anything was fishy? Is Maurice the husband? Now I'm kind of blanking in and out because we gotta find out.
And they would make sure that she was happy. Maurice doing his part as a responsible father in caring for Makanani. But the birth of their new baby daughter wouldn't heal the couple's turbulent marriage. And actually, their relationship was so turbulent that Maurice would often disappear overnight when things got too much.
So he had
this pattern
he had a side thing. That's what he sounded like. He had a side thing. She ain't happy.
Continued until one night in October 2015. After yet another argument between the two, the couple headed their separate ways for the night. Rosemary staying with the baby, while Maurice did his usual thing by storming out the house. But, strangely enough, this time he never returned home. Being gone for more than one night had Rosemary worried. Worried enough that she went to the police station to get help. And you can probably guess where this is going. Just later that very same day, the body of a deceased man was found in the town of Oliphants-Fontaine. A body that, soon after, would be identified as Maurice Mabassa. Maurice had faced an extremely violent death. He was riddled with more than 80 stab wounds.
Damn!
And after this, his body was dumped alongside a quiet road.
Bro, 80 stab wounds? She was going crazy. 80 stab wounds. Boy, what?
Although the cause of his death left barely any room for imagination, the actual motive as to why he was killed was not obvious. None of his valuables had been taken from him. In fact, the way that he was identified was through his credit card in his wallet found on him. And just like before, this case was pushed under the rug, never to be investigated any further.
Boy, so Africa, it's like a lawless land in Africa. As long as you ain't caught in the act, they don't give a damn. Obviously. That's crazy.
Insurance cover. And no surprises, Rosemary was the beneficiary. She received 400,000 rand in compensation for his death, with an extra 100,000 rand from his employer, the US Embassy. 3 deaths,
How much?
3 policies paid out to Rosemary, and 3 instances where she was now financially stronger. Surely all this death in the family was enough to raise suspicions.
Yeah.
Yet, surprisingly, it didn't.
That's crazy.
We're pushing on to June 2016, and Rosemary had new company in her home. Her niece, Zanelle Motha, had come to stay with her for a few weeks, as she was having financial trouble. It was during this short visit that Zanelle was tragically hit by a car in Kempton Park. Miraculously, Zanelle survived. She did, however, sustain several injuries, and so Rosemary kindly took her to the hospital to be checked over. Doctors who examined Zanelle would find that her injuries were only superficial, and therefore, she was discharged from hospital that very same day. Rosemary again taking her back home and into her care.
No.
However, that very same night, Zanelle started to complain of severe pain in her chest. In fact, the pain had become so violent that she couldn't stop crying. Rosemary rushed her to the hospital the very next morning, and, upon arrival, only one of them was breathing.
No.
When examined, Zanelle only had a few abrasions on her face, but the real problem was internally, where she had multiple fractured ribs, and her liver was severely damaged. Doctors sadly couldn't do anything for Zanelle. There was no way that they would have discharged her the previous day if she had these injuries. The conclusion was that this must have happened after she was discharged.
Come on.
When asked by doctors, Rosemary said that she had no idea how this could have happened. Apparently, Rosemary had been out of the house for most of that day, so maybe it was accidental and self-inflicted. Lo and behold, Zanelle did in fact have a life insurance policy, and Rosemary was again the beneficiary. She received 120,000 rand, the equivalent of $7,500. Authorities didn't question the circumstances, therefore no investigations were ever conducted. Another member of the family gone, and still no suspicion from anyone.
Bro, what is
Who
going
exactly
on?
knows what happened to Zanelle that fateful night? Unfortunately, the final chapter to her life would die alongside her. Book shut, case closed. After the death of Zanelle, Rosemary began to get closer to more members of her family.
Oh my God.
Namely Zanelle's brother, Mayeni Mashaba. By April of 2017, Mayeni was due to visit Pretoria, a city just north of Johannesburg. And Rosemary, wanting to be closer with her nephew, offered to drive him halfway, where he could then hitch a ride from a gas station. Mayeni agreed. Rosemary dropped him off as planned on the R21, before heading back to her own home late that evening. And the very next day, she received a phone call from the police. They had found a body in Oliphants-Fontaine, and after investigating, it was identified to be Mayeni. Another death, and another insurance claim to be filed. Only this time, the insurance company was a little more thorough. On the policy, Rosemary was listed as Mayeni's partner. Again, kind of gross. And as she couldn't produce any proof of such a relationship, the claim was ultimately rejected, Rosemary receiving nothing.
I know she pissed.
And that pattern continued later in 2017. As in April of that year, Rosemary's nephew named Brilliant Mashego suddenly disappeared, only to be found dead several days later. The records of Brilliant's cell phone pinpointed that the last person to see him alive was Rosemary, and Rosemary's records highlighted that the two were together for most of the previous day, driving from Johannesburg to Bushbuck Bridge before parting ways in the evening. Rosemary denied these claims, and even further, she refused to be questioned about it by authorities. Similar circumstances to before, Brilliant had 3 life insurance policies to his name, with Rosemary listed as the beneficiary as his mother. However, without being able to provide any proof of this, the claim was ultimately rejected. With not 1 but 6 family members now dead through strange circumstances, I'm sure even Rosemary wondered if she could ever be stopped from her killing spree.
Wow.
She had evaded the law 6 times, and she had no plans to stop either. And that would be the case until the year 2018. With 2 murders in the family fruitless due to rejected insurance claims, Rosemary was getting desperate.
She pissed.
She was low on money, and she needed to make more people to...
How are you low on money when you have a job and you did already cleared about like $70,000? How are you low? She was going to that casino. That damn Nina.
Here and fast. And this time, she would source the help of a hitman named Njabalu Kunene. Being a police officer, she had found him through her field of work, already arresting Kunene several years ago for possessing a gun. She approached him with a plot to kill her own sister, Joyce.
Wow.
And, disturbingly, her request also included killing all 5 of Joyce's children.
No! 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 Not 5 of the kids!
Being only 6 months old. Kunene was by no means a saint, but he was shocked by her request. With a command so evil, Kunene couldn't go ahead with it. So instead, he approached police with the information that he had,
Thank God.
despite that same information being enough to criminalize himself. He shared everything, telling the police about her background, her plot, and her motive. And in response, police decided to employ Kunene to be a part of an undercover plot to acquire more evidence. The plan was simple enough, police discreetly fitting his car with a video camera. All they needed was for Kunene to somehow lure Rosemary into the passenger seat and unknowingly confess to her own plans. Kunene called Rosemary, asking her if she could meet him to iron out the details. She agreed, and this time Kunene would have an accomplice, who was actually an undercover police officer. She agreed to drive the pair to Bushbuck Ridge, about a 5 hours drive from Johannesburg.
Right.
This was in order to show them where her sister and her children lived, and how exactly she wanted them to be killed.
What?
The sting operation was a great success, and what Rosemary was caught saying on camera is haunting.
Ningangena nibahame ngingabashisa mara ukugwaza nokudubula ayikho emakhaya yabona ukushisa number 1 nokuhamba number 1 zona lezo yithu bengicanga ukuthi sihambe manje ne masihamba manje ngiyohlangana naye ngimbize sihlangane somewhere mina mhlambe ngifake imoto laphana yabona ngimnikezele laphilisi njabule yabona ngimtshele ukuthi lamaphilisi lawa ngithi lamaphilisi asiza umntamba wami mawulala uwaphuza womkhuhlane ngithi manje kuzingena isizini yomkhuhlane ngithi niwaphuze mani lala ngoba ayalalisana then nina nizokhona ukungena ke akunamabhadla laphana ngibuyela la esibhedlela ngibuyela la esibhedlela nayo baba endlini uyazi ukuthi ngila esibhedlela so la esibhedlela ngicelile banginikeze i-password bathe ngibuye ngo-4 so lana noma ngafika ngo-5 6 7 akunandaba esilong ngidulile so ngoba ngithi indawo yokushisa ifuna ngishise kusebusuku siyayibona ngiklini mina ngingaqala ngazi mase bangitshela indaba mina kusasa ngiyavuvuka ngiyagijima ngiyekhaya ngicela amalungiselelo ngiyaklima ngenza zonke lezi zinto.
Needless to say, Rosemary was arrested just moments after showing the hitmen her sister's house. The following court case was a lengthy one. Beginning in 2018, she was trialed for 6 counts of murder for the lives of her cousin, Madala Homu, her sister, Audrey Ndlovu, her boyfriend, Morris Mabasa, her niece, Zanel Motha, and her nephews, Mayeni Mashaba and Brilliant Machego. And throughout her killing spree, Rosemary had pocketed 1.4 million rand from several insurance payouts, totaling around $90,000 or £65,000. Throughout her trial, the court found it difficult to gather sufficient evidence to support all 6 murders, as there was never much of an investigation into any individual case. And as a result, the court had to take a substantial amount of time to build this unique case against her. 3 years later, on the 22nd of October 2021, Rosemary Ndlovu's trial began. The court amassed a total of 40 witnesses to come forward and testify against Rosemary, which included family members, colleagues, and the 2 hitmen that she had attempted to hire to kill her sister. As proceedings began, Rosemary was jovial towards the court and often posed for cameras, seemingly unaware of how serious her situation was. Families of those deceased took to the stand to comment on how unfeeling and flippant she was at the funerals of their loved ones. It was also highlighted that, even though she was the one to prepare and file those insurance policies, she was also always the last person to see the victim alive, and barely contributed towards funeral costs.
Bro.
It wasn't until the unflattering coincidences started piling up that Rosemary began to get hostile. She outright denied any involvement in any of these murders, meeting these allegations with anger and rudeness.
What?
She even got angry at journalists simply for recording her. Regardless of this, at the end of her trial, she insisted that she was
First off, bro, hold on. She about to clock somebody. What's going on? First, that's a big woman. That's a big woman. Like, if she came at you crazy, come on, that's a big woman. Y'all get what I'm trying to say? Hell, I don't even know if I could take that. You know, and I throw them boys, you feel me? But let's see who she about to hit.
Was innocent, but did apologise to the families and friends of those who had been killed and asked for forgiveness. It didn't take long for Rosemary's verdict to be made. In October of 2021, Rosemary Ndlovu was found guilty on all charges, which included 6 counts of premeditated murder, 4 counts of fraud, and 7 incitements to commit murder. She was therefore served with 6 life sentences, 70 years for incitement to commit murder, and a further 10 years for her counts of fraud. Rosemary will be 71 before she is even considered for parole.
Boy, you know, I ain't gonna lie, that was a very slow start. That was a very, very slow start. I didn't think that it'd turn out to be that interesting. But bro, Rosemary is a wild girl. Bro, she killed 6 people. Got the insurance claim from 4 of them. And then she planned on killing her sister and like her 5 nieces and nephews. Bro, that lady crazy. You know, I don't really wish, anything ill to anybody. But if she would have got that one penalty, I wouldn't even blame her. Because like people like that, your own family, your own nephews, your sister, your husband, your cousin. There's some strange people out here in this world, y'all. Look, that being said, man, y'all already know what it is, man. Till next time, subscribe. We out.